And welcome back to Hannity. So the fake news destroy Trump, liberal media losing their mind yet again over something President Trump said at the White House during an event honoring Native American code talkers who served in World War II. President Trump poked fun at one of his favorite targets, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has been proven to have lied about her Native American heritage. Here's what he said.
You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special.
Now, of course, the liberal media is jumping all over the use of the word and the name Pocahontas, which he has called Warren repeatedly. But shouldn't they be more focused on going after Warren, who's exploited her fake Native American heritage for her own personal gain? Here with reaction, former Deputy Assistant to the President, Fox News National Security Strategist, Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, Warren is now saying Trump called me a racial slur, will not shut me up. Well, there was a big investigation, and the use of minority status when it's not accurate seems to be a far bigger offense that the left will never talk about. Your reaction?
It's a continuation of everything you've covered so far in your show. There is a protected class in this country, and it's the elite of the left. They're like untouchables. If you're Conyers, if you're Al Franken, if you're Bill Clinton, you can preach that you're for women. You can preach that you're for the victim. But when you get caught red-handed, nothing happens to you. It's the same with Senator Warren. This is a woman who had a no-show job or a job where she taught one course and then picked up $400,000 from Harvard a year. And then she's culturally, let's use the correct phrase, Sean, she's using cultural appropriation. She's using the Native American heritage to get that job. And then when
is
the president pointed out,
American, Dr. Gorka?
No, the left couldn't prove it. They tried their best to prove it. The best we found out is that she said, well, when she was young, her family told her that she had Cherokee blood in her. No proof, zero proof. When the president points it out, then she's the one who's been abused. Wrong. You abused the American native heritage when you lied about your ethnic background,
and tried
Senator
to
Warren.
take advantage of minority status that she never deserved.
Right, and which Harvard then waved as a flag in 1996 when they were accused of being too white. They said, no, look, we've got this woman on our faculty and she's part Cherokee. Bogus. This is fake news. It's classic fake news, Sean.
All right, what do you think? We've got all this hypocrisy going on as it relates to sexual harassment. The very same Democrats that many of whom were involved in smearing all the Clinton women, I mean smearing and defending what we now know is predatory behavior of Bill Clinton, and the outrage they show only when Republicans are accused of such things. Now they talk about due process. Now they talk about not rushing to judgment.
Right.
I'm consistent. I think that should be the case. Take everything seriously. They're too serious. Charges are serious. But people do still deserve the presumption of innocence, and that's even John Conyers. But they politicize this. Your thoughts?
Look, that's the American way. We have to be a nation of law and order, of rule of law, even for the elites. As my good friend...
Not trial by media.
Not trial by media, and not false accusations that are just built upon and built upon. Look, Sean, it's very simple. As my good friend Chris Plant, who has the morning radio show here in D.C., says all the time, if the left didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. That's the bottom line. It's flexible. It's made of rubber. Oh, and if you're one of us, if you're Hillary, if you're Bill, if you're Connors, if you're Franken, don't worry. When you get caught, we'll cover for you.
What should happen in those cases? In the Franken case, you have evidence, and you have an admission, although not on everything. In Conyers' case, he says no. In Moore's case, he says didn't happen.
Well, ideally, the elite should police itself. They should say, no, you have to leave. You must show that you have moral fiber, and you must resign, or you must be sacked from your positions. If there's a legal case to be made, if there's actual sexual assault, that should be investigated to the end of the trail.
Agreed.
Whether they're Republicans or whether they're Democrats.
Agreed. I don't think it's hard to find. All right. As the Senate and this tax bill, we have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Is it going to pass? And do you have any faith it will pass?
I give it a 50-50 shot. If they don't realize, if the GOP establishment doesn't realize that their necks are on the line if this doesn't pass, then more fool them. More fool them.
All right. Sebastian Gorka, always good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Breaking now in the Roy Moore controversy, with the Washington Post busting an organization run by a conservative activist after it sent a woman to pose as a victim of the Alabama Senate candidate in order to entrap the paper into falsely reporting her claims. The woman trying to bait reporters into giving their opinions as she secretly recorded them. But the Post never actually reported and ran with her story and, in fact, checked her out instead. Fact-checking, as they like to claim they always do before running any story, eventually learning the woman's links to Project Veritas, a group that has a history of using deceptive tactics to discredit mainstream news outlets and expose what it claims to be media bias. Joining us now, Howard Kurtz, Fox News media analyst and anchor of Media Buzz. I love this story because it's just, wow. I mean, it was a gotcha campaign gone bad. Project Veritas, run by conservative activist James O'Keefe, tries to bait the Washington Post into falling for a false sexual misconduct story on Roy Moore, and it backfires. I guess kudos to the Washington Post for doing fact-checking.
Well, it reads like a detective story, and it's one battle in the war on the media that has spectacularly backfired. So the woman's name is Jamie Phillips. She approaches the Washington Post, which was the first to report on the accusations of 4 women who say, and then when they were teenagers, that Roy Moore had pursued them sexually. He, of course, vehemently denies those allegations. And Jamie Phillips tells the Post reporter this inflammatory story that she had a sexual relationship with Roy Moore when she was 15, which would be statutory rape, that he drove her to have an abortion. The Post reporters checked it out, interviewed her several times, found discrepancies in her story, suspected she was working for James O'Keefe, who does these undercover stings, and found a GoFundMe page in which Jamie Phillips appears to describe her new job. And so here's some videotape made by the Washington Post of Post reporter Stephanie McCrum after informing Jamie Phillips that she is being videotaped, confronting her with the information from that GoFundMe posting.
And it says that that you're moving to New York and that you've accepted a job to work in the conservative media movement to combat the lies and deceit of the liberal MSM.
I was looking to take a job last summer in New York, but it fell through.
Now, that was not true. The tape goes on to show this woman saying she applied for a job with the Daily Caller. Daily Caller says absolutely no record of ever talking to her. Yesterday, Post reporters found Jamie Phillips going to the New York offices of Project Veritas, that's James O'Keefe's organization, and then decided to break the story. Now, an interesting journalistic twist here is that the Post had to decide to break its off-the-record agreement with this woman because they say, the editor, Marty Barron, says that this was a scheme to deceive and embarrass us, and if you lie, then an off-the-record agreement no longer holds.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point. And you know, when you have an interview off the record, never, quite frankly, can I remember a news organization going back on that. Off the record means off the record. But this is definitely playing a whole new role in the off the record scenario with the media. This Jamie Phillips woman, basically, she not only said that Roy Moore had been guilty of sexual misconduct with her, but that he, in fact, impregnated her at age 15 and forced her to have an abortion. I mean, it wasn't like she tried to tell some weak story. I mean, she went all the way with this. And to believe that the Post would fall for it is a bit surprising.
To believe that yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
To believe the Post would fall for it, it doesn't betray much understanding of how newspapers work. I mean, the Post, to its credit, tried to get documents, corroboration to see whether the story had any truth. They didn't fall for the repeated efforts to get Post reporters to say, well, this would really hurt Roy Moore's campaign if we publish this. And finally, you know, it's good politics, I guess, in Alabama. Roy Moore has repeatedly attacked the Washington Post. His people have called it a worthless piece of crap. There actually are Alabama reporters who reported on some of these accusations as well. So this was an effort to use lies about something as horrifying as raping a teenager to entrap the paper didn't fall for.
This was payback, obviously, for the Washington Post because it originally broke the story about the alleged sexual assault by Roy Moore and a 14-year-old some almost 40 years ago. But we do need to put 2 and 2 together here. I want to know what you think, because as we know, O'Keefe was commissioned in 2009 by Andrew Breitbart. Breitbart, of course, was the founder of Breitbart. You know, the website, the conservative news website. It's now led by former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon obviously was a staunch Roy Moore supporter. Any connection here?
Breitbart said it had nothing to do with this sting. I don't have any information to the contrary. I think it's important, as you know, that we stick to the facts here. I mean, this is what James O'Keefe does. Sometimes he gets journalists saying embarrassing things. He also has a criminal record when he, at least in one instance, when he went over the line. And so I don't think the Post was so much trying to enjoy this as to tell the story. It's an incredible story about a woman who made up this elaborate scheme to try to entrap the paper into making false charges against Roy Moore in this overheated environment. And had that happen, of course, the newspaper would have been discredited. And so it's an interesting journalistic lesson about be careful, check it out, ask for documents, don't just put it up on the website because somebody tells you.
Look, everybody's running with these sexual harassment stories, so I wouldn't put it past a certain media organization maybe not to do the fact-checking that the Washington Post did, because this is a story that people are, a lot of the mainstream media are dying to tell. A lesson learned, for sure.
Indeed.
All right, Howard Kurtz, great to see you as always.